Tiffany Clark.
Here.
Ashley Slitter. If I say your name wrong, please tell me right away. Tom Wilson.
Here.
Jeffrey Tooze.
It's right here.
Helen Chet. Maria Patrick.
Here.
Michelle Nell.
Here.
Patrick Mullen. Adam. I saw Adam. Marilyn Kearney.
Here.
Sam Kaufman.
Here.
Mary Heibecker.
Here.
Mel Frey.
Here.
Susan Bergeron. Karen Von Heen.
Oh, good job.
Did I do well?
Yeah.
Okay. Robert McPherson.
Here.
And Hannah Russell.
Here.
Aaron Moran.
Here.
Who's my other name?
Where?
Brad Zeman. That's everybody. Okay. So first thing we have is our pre-work. Read housing in the village of Waunakee, May 2017.
Yes.
You want to start with that right away?
Yeah, well, that's everything that folks should have done before they got here, who did their homework. All right, it's like the first day of class. Like most hands go up and then some people are like, yeah, I'm doing my homework now. That's the way it is. My name is Kristen Runge. I'm from the University of Wisconsin Extension, and I, along with Sharon Lesberg, are going to be facilitating the meetings that we're having over the next 7, 8, 9 months that we've got going on. A little bit of background about me and about Sharon. Sharon, I'll let you introduce yourself as well. And then a little bit of background on why we're here as a task force. And once we're through those things, we'll get into introducing ourselves and getting to know one another. I know there are a lot of people in the room that already know one another, but I'm sure there are a few new faces or faces that you maybe know in passing but don't know as well, if you will, by the end of the task force work. So my name is Kristen Runge, as I said. I'm from the University of Wisconsin Extension. I'm a Waunakee resident. I'm here in a neutral capacity, though, as an extension educator and community development specialist. So my role with the task force is going to be helping everyone in this room make decisions that will be used to advise the Plan Commission and the Village Board. So I'm a neutral party in this. My background is in mass communication. I study how media is used to shape opinion about controversial public events, primarily in science, but I also work in economic development. And we all know that in economic development or decisions about the economy, everybody agrees on everything, right? That's the way it works. There are lots of different viewpoints, lots of different issues, and I help figure out how those opinions are formed and what people react to when they see things in the media. So that's my role here as facilitator. Sharon?
Hi, my name is Sharon Lesberg, and I am Community Development Educator with Dane County Extension. So we're slightly different than UW Extension. We're situated in the county, at the county level. And what I do is work with community organizations and sometimes entities of government and civic organizations with any kind of group, and do a wide range of work with groups, usually capacity building, organizational development, sometimes economic development. And I'm here in the role of facilitator. A facilitator is a person who helps the group stay on task and helps make your work easy. So I have no input whatsoever on topic that's being discussed. I have input on process. And I think you'll find that we'll be, through the course of the 9 months that we're meeting, we'll be using some non-traditional processes. I like to get groups split up in various ways in order to hear all different voices and get everybody engaged. So it might feel like we're shaking things up from a typical meeting, but I hope you're all game for that and can have some fun and also get to the end goal to accomplish the outcomes anticipated for the task force.
All right. So before we begin with our own introductions, a little bit about every time we meet, we'll start out by looking at what the goal of the meeting is today, what our tasks are during the meeting time, and we'll have a brief presentation, sometimes before, we'll have a presentation, either before or after, depending on what our tasks and our purposes for that specific meeting. So that's kind of the flow of the meeting. So today our idea is that we're going to consolidate as a group. We're going to talk a little bit about the task before us for the next few weeks. We're not going to hear any sort of heavy statistics today. We're not going to be talking about some of the issues that we're going to be deciding. This is really on getting process and started on the right foot today. So that's where we're headed today. With that, our specific agenda, you all have in front of you, we'll start out with the background and the role of the task force. Once we're done with that, we'll get into introductions and our group work, and then a presentation that Todd is going to give and Kevin are going to give on setting the context for housing in Waunakee, why we're here, some of the bigger reasons we're here. So with that, the role of the task force. When extension was approached by village administration, who is interested in having a proactive role in addressing some of the concerns regarding housing that have come up in the community over the last few years, we sat down together, and that was Sharon and I and Todd and Kevin and Chris, and came up with a problem statement. And I've highlighted, there's nothing worse than a meeting, right, than somebody reading from a slide. So I've highlighted the important part of what the charge to the task force is. The idea is that the Village of Waunakee is seeking to evaluate the existing housing mix. So that's one of the big tasks before us, by understanding community, economic, and social needs, both now and predicting the future. So the decisions, the information we're going to be getting are going to help guide decisions, not just for now, but going into the future. And to determine the need for housing options that appropriately fit the definition of affordable, since that's one of the key concerns the community has, in relation to the economic conditions in Waunakee. And in addition to that, some of the other things that we're charged with doing over the course of this 8 or 9 months is looking at other population housing needs too. Are there needs for seniors? Are there needs for diverse family housing? As they should be evaluated. And as you as task force members see and identify. One of the things that this may involve, most likely will involve, is also evaluating current ordinances and policies. And there we have it. What do you think? Easy enough? We should have this done in 2 nights, right? And everyone's going to agree on the ideas, right? Right. So the second thing that we have along with this, when you work with the University of Wisconsin Extension, one of the key things that we do as Extension, we don't necessarily come in and, in fact, I can't think of many cases where we've come in and said this is what a community needs to do. The idea behind working with Extension, as opposed to hiring a consultant that comes in and does this in a different way, is capacity building. And a primary goal of the University of Wisconsin Extension is to build capacity among citizens within a community to use information, data sources maybe they're not familiar with, processes maybe they haven't used before, in order to guide the decisions and make policies and enact actions that help the community become the community it wants to be a vital and a meaningful place. So that is one of the key things that we do. So over the course of the next few months, and I've got a handout that I'd like to hand out as I'm talking about this, so you have an idea, thanks Chris, of where we're going. We've asked a lot of your time over the next few months. There's meetings, there's pre-work that we ask you to do, there's a lot of thought you're going to put into this. We recognize that this is a significant commitment on your part, and that you're in this because not only are you interested in the issue and want to be involved in addressing the issue, but you're also looking to solve and use your time wisely. So today we're working on group consolidation. Our goal is to come together as a group and understand the task before us. In October, we start rolling our sleeves up and we start working towards the solutions that we need to identify. So in October, we'll have Professor Dave Marcoulier, who's with Urban and Regional Planning Department in University of Wisconsin-Madison. And a speaker to be confirmed. We've got 2 different people who are interested, and we're trying to decide which one is going to be better suited. To talk about amenities and community development impacts on housing, and this is directly related to the 2 comprehensive plans that the village has. The General Comprehensive Plan for the Village of Waunakee and Westport, and the Comprehensive Plan for trails, bikes, and recreational spaces. So the 2 major guiding documents. Dave Marcoulier, Dr. Marcoulier, Professor Marcoulier, has an extensive body of work on how amenities affect development across Wisconsin. So we know when we put in bike trails, when we put in parks, that it attracts certain type of people and fosters certain types of developments. That's what we'll be talking about in October, along with economic decisions related to housing and community development. In November, Dan Verhoff, which is one of the lead researchers at the Demographic and Population Laboratory at UW-Madison, is going to come out to talk about what has been happening in Waunakee in terms of demographic changes over the last 20 to 30 years, what has been happening in Dane County, and what we can expect to see over the next 10 to 15 years using the data that we have. So that'll be an information that this session and discussions that will focus on how is the population changing over the course of our lifetimes and in the course of the lifetimes of our children, really. In December, we're going to get deeper into the issues surrounding economic development as it relates to housing. And in December we have, I don't have my reading glasses on. Did I skip November? I skipped, here we are in December. Matt Harris and Bill Ryan. Matt Harris is one of the statewide GIS specialists. Some of you maybe heard him on the radio, talking about in and out commuting trends, talking about workforce issues, trends in labor force. He's also a researcher with the Economic Development Administration's University Center at UW-Madison, which I am also a part of. So we're talking about that in December. And then the second person we're bringing out is Bill Ryan. Bill Ryan is one of our statewide specialists. He has a national reputation in downtown and business district development, because we know housing issues affect commuting patterns and affect business development in the town. So we try to consider all of those things when we're making decisions about housing. Then we break for the new year very briefly, and we come back in January and we talk about social and community identity issues related to housing. And at this session in January, between now and the end of December, we as a group, led by me, will be doing two different surveys. We'll be doing a community identity survey of residents of Waunakee. So it's going to touch on what people in the community want out of the community, what they want for housing, get feedback from people that live here. Then we're doing a second smaller study on those that commute into Waunakee for work but live elsewhere. And that's going to give us an idea of what our commuting residents, they might not be here overnight, but they spend a significant portion of their waking hours in Waunakee as employees, what their experience of the community is like and what services they're using here, and maybe give us some insight into, hopefully give us some insight into maybe why they're choosing to commute here rather than live here. That'll give us some insight at least into the pressures that employers might be feeling with regards to commuters and employment. Then come February, we're going to start looking at housing development options. We'll have talked about this throughout these conversations, but come February, we're really going to focus on taking all of the information, the discussions we've had, the information we've highlighted, the issues we've surfaced, and looking at what are some of the different housing development options. And we'll be bringing in Todd Johnson, who's a co-leader of the Community Vitality and Placemaking team, who works around the state in identifying developments. He works with one of our volunteers on that team is Ed Freer, who is one of the planners for the Village of Waunakee. So we'll look at housing development options. In March, we'll be looking again at options and making some preliminary recommendations. In April, we'd like to have a community engagement session where we open up the work we've done to the community, invite them to come in and react to some of the ideas that we have. In May, we'll evaluate what we've done and begin writing a report. And then in June, we'll have a draft and a final report that we're ready to go for. Sounds easy, right? But yeah, like maybe like a hard weekend, we could get through all of this and just, no. It'll be enjoyable because you'll be contributing to your community. You guys are here and ready to participate. We're very excited about that. So this is where we're headed for the upcoming months. What questions do you guys have about this? I need to just talk for like 7 minutes.
Yeah. I'm just curious, because we have a packed agenda for each of these meetings. Is there backup if we get behind the schedule or we want to explore a topic more?
Yeah. We can do that in a number of different ways. We can look at putting up some online forums that the committee can use to discuss asynchronously issues that might have come up. We can expand or change agendas as we're going along. Nothing is set in stone. So if we get into an issue and it seems to be something that's really interesting or really fruitful or really relevant to the task as you all identify, we can stop and we can dig into that a little bit deeper. And we can also along the way too, if you have information needs or data needs that you'd like more about, maybe we don't have enough information or we want more information on apartment configurations, let me know and I will find the people that can give us that information. My job is to get you the data you need and the numbers you need. What other questions do you guys have?
Do you want a quick cover for everybody to reply all?
Logistics on communications?
Yes,
Sure.
just to make sure everybody knows.
Yeah, hi everybody. If you haven't met me yet, you've seen my emails. I'm sure I'm Todd Schmidt, the village administrator, and I did a couple of follow-ups, as you all saw, regarding how your role fits into the legal framework of communications with regards to government bodies. And being that, I kind of explained this in the email, but being that you're a group that was created by the village board itself, you fall under the same level of rules related to those communications. The general recommendation that I give anybody, village board members and otherwise, is when in doubt, choose the cautious route. Can two of you have a conversation at the supermarket about this work and not constitute a quorum? You can, but then you run the risk of the nature of that discussion being discussed by one other with one other, and then one other with one other. It starts to turn into what can be called a walking quorum. And my advice for all of you is to simply pursue avoiding that situation and have this forum house your work in discussion. Don't let that stop you from talking to others in the community. In fact, I think that's probably really important, that you engage folks at the supermarket or next door about next door, not online next door, literally next door, about the work and what folks think of the community that way. So that's an important point to keep in mind. What did I miss? Emails are public record. Yeah, as some of you, I believe, made the choice to set up a special email account where you're only doing this communication for this work through that, which is great. There is if for some reason there was a public records request for emails, electronic emails through all people in the group, if you're using an email that you also use for all other sorts of private activity, you're just your own personal email account, that's essentially open to discovery, which that's a very legal kind of term. I can ask Tom or other attorneys in the room about that, but it may just be to your benefit to set up a side account or be really careful with how you manage those communications.
Last one's don't reply all.
Yes, reply all is not your friend. In fact, I just added a new thing on the bottom of all my emails in red that says don't reply all whatever you do. Yes, ma'am.
I have a question about replying all. Why do you guys not BCC everybody? And then somebody could not even possibly do a reply all. Is there a reason why you don't use BCC over 2 for everyone?
I think I can answer that. It's harder for like open records requests for them to see who you sent it to, so then they begin to wonder who it actually went to. So they tend to want to have it very clear that it was sent to these people.
The BCC seems difficult to search as well. I found if we're trying to collect records, they don't show up the same way. They're not as available to us to decipher.
Okay.
So an example, Nyla comes across a great housing report online. Okay, she wants to send it to everybody. Should she send it to everybody?
Mm-hmm.
She should send it where?
Todd?
One of those two, not everybody else. And then they will distribute it to everybody, and we're okay.
That's a good example. We're looking to set up a resources section of the website that's dedicated to this group, and as people come across things, we're happy to put that up there. I will also put out, really urge that social media not be a place for conversation about your work either. If citizens get into that engagement at work, great, but if Roberta writes a great article and there's some stuff that's starting to happen in the social media portion underneath her Facebook page, that's great, read it and absorb it, but don't comment on it. Don't be a participant in that setting, in that discussion, in that you have a formal role here.
Perfect, thank you.
Excellent. Thank you, Todd. Thank you, Chris, for reading that up. Yeah. So I never like to leave my portion of anything without asking people for a favor. So that's what I'm going to do right now before I turn it over to Sharon. And we have two things, data collections that are coming up. One is the commuter survey, one is the community identity resident survey. And a little bit about why I'm bringing this up now is we start on these early and we talk about them often when we're doing surveys. This will be launched in mid to late October, so we have about a 5 to 6 week working period out of there. Once it's launched, it'll be out in the field live and for people able to take for a good month or 5 weeks. So, but before we get there, I want your input as the task force on what you want to know from these surveys. We have 2 standard surveys that we've distributed across the state for issues related to community identity and housing and commuters and their needs from a community. But this is a Waunakee specific project that we're doing, just as we do in every community. We try to customize what we're doing. And since you all are the ones that will be using the data, there's a couple of things that I'm hoping to do. With the commuter survey, if people would volunteer or be comfortable volunteering to read the drafts, comment on the drafts, let me know what information you might like to see from that drafts, that would be very helpful. If anyone is interested in talking to their employer about distributing this through email, if you could let me know about that, and then I'll be able to follow up with them after you contact that. And the same with the community identity. The second one is designed to survey the Waunakee residents. It's right now planned to be distributed via Facebook and email, and then via paper copies in public locations, so people that don't feel comfortable filling a survey online, don't have a way to fill the survey online, can access it just as easily as everyone else. And again, with this, I'm hoping for some volunteers to review questions. I am going to pass these around the room. And if you don't mind, I'm sorry, I went right over your head with that. If you don't mind, if you're interested in helping, and you're not obligated in any way, but if you're interested in helping with this portion of it, that would be great. All right. So what questions? Does anybody have any questions before I turn it over to Sharon and we get to do the fun stuff?
Sorry, I have more questions today.
It's okay.
Are you distributing both as paper as well?
Yes, yeah. So the second one with the community identity, whatever employers we have that are willing to distribute it to their employees.
But you're not going to leave it at Village Center?
Well, I probably could with that one as well. Yeah. It would be really easy. Yeah, keep the Village Center. Yeah. And thank you for cleaning it up. See, this is why I asked. Yeah. Otherwise I'll miss something. Yeah. All right. So next on the agenda, introductions, task force members, and group work.
Okay.
So over to you, Sharon.
So, how many of you of the task force know everybody else who's on the task force? Good. All right, you're going to get to know some of your neighbors. We're not going to go around the table and say your name. What I'm going to have you do is get up instead. I have these quotes here. These are quotes from famous people, quotes about various things that have to do with community and leadership. And I'm going to ask you all to come around. There's some quotes up here, some on that table, and just silently read the quotes and pick one that speaks to you. Pick one that resonates with you. And you might have to take a few minutes because some of you will want the same quote. And if you want the same quote, that's fine. Just sit next to each other and you'll use the same quote. And then what we're going to do is go around and everyone will introduce themselves and speak to why the quote resonated and what the connection is with the work that you're doing on the task force. It's sort of, can you find a quote that explains why you're here? All right? So everybody has a few minutes. Come on up, read the quotes, and then we'll go back and do the introductions.
Everybody should have been saying thank you so much. You're awesome.
Do you have these integrated into yours?
More comfortable in what? In public? You? Yeah. No, I think that's like the task force in Middleton. And then last night we had a meeting there, Woodland and
I didn't know what to say. I did that. Yeah.
Oh, that was
It was interesting, very interesting.
If you want to share it, you can.
Okay, good.
It's the one that's the one I spoke to the most. I watched to see who took it. Well, I
Get it all, right?
Absolutely.
I know.
Everything, yeah.
Yes. This is a large group. I might not have enough quotes, but I hope that you found something that resonates. And I'm going to ask if we could form some semblance of a circle, just so folks can be looking at one another. Just shift your chair a little bit. And when it's your turn, provide your name, read your quote, and explain really briefly why you chose that quote. And I'm also going to ask if you could state what part of the task force you're representing, just so folks know the diversity of geography or representation of organizations. All right, any volunteers to start? Yeah, one right.
All right, so you want me to read the quote first?
Your name first.
Oh, my name is Brad Zeman. I sit on the planning commission here for the village of Waunakee, developer of LIHTC development, so section 42, section 8. My main job is insuring large property real estate, but I got a real soft spot for affordable housing. This year I've been to 5 different states attending affordable housing conferences. Just got back from Iowa, so I'm going to Ohio's next week. So when it comes to affordable housing, it's a big passionate point for me. Just got off as the director of the Salvation Army, and with that we're leading the charge to build a new women's shelter on East Washington Avenue. And with my skill set of LIHTC development, it's going to allow me to give back. So I am very passionate about the housing stock and affordable housing. We successfully opened up 38 new units for Housing First here in Dane County. We've got a 94% success rate. So I got this quote here, and it talks about give someone everything you can think of. The winds to fly, the roots to stay. If they choose none of these, hold the door open for them with a smile. So it resonated with me about giving people their opportunity to get into a home if it's their first chance or if it's affordable housing. So that's how it really resonated for me. Thanks.
Yeah, I'm sorry I did that. Just In the interest of time, we're not going to get into that long of a history.
So I just
Yeah.
keep going. I'm Karen Von Muna, and I think I am an at-large, whatever that means, generic. The opposite of poverty is not wealth. In too many places, the opposite of poverty is justice. And so for me, I run an agency on the north side of Madison that basically is working around food equity. So I've done a lot of work around food and food justice and a lot about food access. But I also have a long history of working around affordable housing issues. So food, housing, all of the same.
I'm Tiffany Clark. I think I qualified as a millennial and a renter. My quote is, if you can do nothing else, do whatever is in your power to make the people in your life feel completely unashamed of who they are. I'm a divorced mom with 2 special needs kids, so it's very important to me that they feel included and that they're happy. So.
Very good. I'm Chris Elmer. I'm the village president. I was looking for another meeting in my meetings, so joking, of course. My quote is, "We are socialized to see what is wrong, missing, off, to tear down the ideas of others and uplift our own. To a certain degree, our entire future may depend on learning to listen without assumptions or defenses." In our society right now, I think with our current president and the social media and what's happening with it, it's caused some real strain on our society, and this plan just resonated right away for me over there. I only saw 7, but this is a very important topic to our community and one that's going to impact all, not just a select few. So this is one of the highlights, actually, of being village president right now, is getting into this committee.
Sitting next to me, I thought. No.
That was one of my other highlights, Tom.
I'm Tom Wilson. I live in Waunakee, actually at the new Kilkenny development, built a downsized 1,800 square foot ranch. And I am the town of Westport's attorney, administrator, clerk, and treasurer. Been doing local government law since 1987. And I am an at-large. And don't you make any jokes in the back row. I am an at-large appointment. And my quote is this: are you actively practicing generosity and vulnerability in order to make the connections between you and others clear, open, available, durable? Generosity here means giving of what you have without strings or expectations attached. Vulnerability means showing your needs. And I picked this, well, there wasn't a whole lot left when I picked, but it was the second sentence, which is generosity here means giving of what you have without strings or expectations attached. And I think that's the way we all need to look at this. We need to think for what's best for the community when we're working together here. So.
I'm Hannah Russell. I am a senior in high school, so I am the youth female representative on the task force. My quote was, "Strive not to be a success, but rather to be of value." So this just resonated with me because not only on the task force, but with everything that I do, you can't really have any effect on the community or on people unless you attempt to do something. So if you're not doing anything, there's no way you can be successful at all. And so it's really just that we're out here doing something and trying to help the community.
I'm Susan Bertrand. I'm a retired Presbyterian minister. I think I represent the senior citizens, but I can see I'm not alone in that department. The quote I picked was, "The most difficult thing is the decision to act. The rest is merely tenacity." In other words, hanging in there. Right? This quote spoke to me. I love all your, kind of more generous, more understanding, open-minded quotes, and this is pretty hard. But I served in the legislature and on a number of task force and committees. And being a Presbyterian, that's all we do is get a committee to study it and study the next thing. So my hope for this, and I love the way you have this set up, is that we get our information together, we present it, and then it's turned into action, and then another task force. Thank you.
My name is Ellen Schaff. I work for the Waunakee Chamber of Commerce, and that's who I'm representing here today. And my quote is, "I alone cannot change the world, but I can cast a stone across the water to create many ripples," which is Mother Teresa, who I adore and have always looked up to and read a lot of her books and such. So for me, the chamber I work for them, but I work on behalf of the members, and if we didn't have members, we wouldn't have a chamber. And so I go out and I come to meetings like this, I gather information, I share it with our different members who have all different reasons, agendas, different ways they look at success and failures and such. And you kind of provide an atmosphere where they can maybe come together, talk it out, and figure it out. I don't think anything can be done in one small group. There's nothing I can do alone. But I can assist, and I think we're only better when we work together. I just started a LinkedIn account today, finally, and I said, better together. We just have to work together, and what's good for the community and for the overall. So I'm honored to be on this task force committee. So thank you.
Robert McPherson. I believe I'm here as the mortgage professional. My quote is, "There must exist a paradigm, practical model for social change that includes an understanding of ways to transform consciousness that are linked to efforts to transform structures." The reason I picked this quote is what I do in my job. I'm a compliance officer for a community bank that has an office here in Madison area, and a lot of my time is spent analyzing data for fair lending purposes, making sure that we're meeting the needs of the community. I'm more familiar with the Community Reinvestment Act, but banks have an obligation under the law to make sure that they're reinvesting back in their communities through lending, either through lower income or through small business and things of that nature. I'm a firm believer that if you want change, you have to go out and you have to set a model for change. And I think that the task force is a great way to do that, and I hope to contribute expertise in helping people understand that the lending options that are available to consumers is sometimes misunderstood, and a lot of people think that they can't own a house when they really can own a house. So things of that nature.
I'm Sam Kaufman. I'm a sophomore in high school, so I'm the youth male representative here. And my quote is, "To serve is beautiful, but only if it is done with joy and a whole heart and a free mind." And that resonated with me because if we all have open minds here, we're going to do a better job, and we're going to get more solutions to these problems that our community is facing.
I'm Nyla Fry, and I'm representing Ward 1. And I took the quote, "One of the most vital ways we sustain ourselves is by building communities of resistance, places where we know we are not alone," by Bell Hooks. And I believe that through positive resistance and working together, opening up communication, there can be positive change. And that when we know that we're not out there alone, then and work as a group, we can build a better community.
I'm Michelle Nell. I live in Southbridge. I'm here as a general contractor and a real estate broker. And I chose do or do not, there is no try, Yoda. I like that one just because I feel like a lot of people will say like, well, I tried as an excuse for not giving it their all.
I'm Jeff Tews. I'm here because I don't think I'm large, but I think I'm a large employer. We run a business, and it's centered in Waunakee. My quote is, genuine equality means not treating everyone the same, but attending equally to everyone's different needs. And that resonated with me. The business that Susan and I started and run today is helping seniors in their homes and at our assisted living. And when we all get to the spot where we need that kind of care, we all have different needs. And we really need to specialize in how we're going to treat each person. And our mission statement is peace of mind, and getting people to families and our clients. But also, we learned very early that our employees have just as many needs. And so we have two sets of clients. We have the families we're serving, and we have our employees. And that's why I'm happy to be on this team as I look at their struggles and how affordable housing in all of Dane County is such an issue.
Hi, I'm Ryan. I have the same quote as Hannah, strive not to be a success, but rather to be of value. I'm here representing the village board. And I think the of value spoke to me, trying to bring my perspective as a senior in college about to enter, hopefully, the workforce next year, looking for the next steps and see what I can bring to it.
I'm Randy Gutenberg, Superintendent for Waunakee Community School District. My quote is by Vincent van Gogh. It says, "If you hear a voice within you say you cannot paint, then by all means paint, and that voice will be silenced." I think that just really talks to that it's the opportunity of learning. I think when you look at what we're doing here, it's all about learning new things, learning from each other, and then formalizing things and getting better at it as we go. So that's what I hope to see us do together over the next number of months.
My name is Pat Molly. I'm a representative for Ward 4, and I'm at large also, I guess. My quote is, "A person who never made a mistake, never tried anything new." And that resonated with me because I like to try new things. I like to try to make solutions for problems that we have. We all have challenges, and with my family and my kids and my people that I work with. Sometimes you got to take another look at things and maybe try things and make some mistakes, and then maybe some solutions can be made. Maybe it's just because I like building stuff that it's, I've done it a lot of times and made a lot of mistakes, and if you keep trying, it'll finally work out. So then with this group, I think that's the way to go about it, with a lot of different minds trying to come together and get something done as far as housing goes.
I chose the same quote. My name is Maria Pack, and I'm here as an at-large member. I've been a resident here for 40 years, and I first moved out here because my first teaching job was here at St. John's. And I've been here for those full 40 years, even though my teaching jobs have taken me other places. So again, a person who never made a mistake, never tried anything new. I think in my teaching life, I always tried to do new things because, quite frankly, I got bored with doing them the same way all the time. And this year I find myself not in a regular teaching position, and so I'm trying something new, and I may find something else that I like.
Adam Kreitzman, I work for the police department, representing emergency services, but also a village resident. And I chose a quote that said, "I can't change the direction of the wind, but I can adjust my sails to always reach my destination." I've always been a pretty goal-oriented person, personal life and through work. And certain things you control, certain things you can't, but you keep pushing through to get there. And
I'm Mary Ellen Kearney, and I represent the Senior Center. And I've been a social worker all my life, first paid and now for nothing. But my quote is, "Nothing is impossible. The word itself says I'm possible." And I think that's a lesson that everybody has to learn. And I would have thought that a task force like this would have been impossible. But here it is with all these people who have all these skills and ambitions and desire to contribute. It's great. So I'm very aware of problems faced by elderly people who are widowed or divorced and having to live on diminished physical and financial capacities, and how they can plan for their future.
I'm Mary Heimbecker, and mine is, "When we identify where our privilege intersects with somebody else's oppression, we'll find our opportunities to make real change." And I just feel that it's a way to reach for those who are not at a level that perhaps we're at right now, and try to help bring them up and figure out ways with the group to make that happen.
Okay, everyone's had a chance? Okay, thank you. Granted, that was just a brief introduction, and that over the course of the next 9 months, you're going to have a lot of opportunity to work with one another and to get to know one another. But I hope that you'll just get a sense of all the spirit, all the passion and commitment that's in this group. It's a great thing to have in order to move a community forward. So the next step is a little bit more work, and that is to determine what the working agreements of the group are. Working agreements, you can think of them as how do we want to engage with one another? What is it we expect of one another? How are we going to communicate with one another? And so in order to get to that point, everyone received this worksheet. I hope it wasn't hard. But what I'm going to do is have you go back to either the table you started at or whatever table is convenient for you and pull these out. I'm going to keep talking while you're moving around. We've got, let's say, no more than 5 at a table, so a couple of you can come here. If there's more than 5 at a table, let's say we switch to this table. And I'll collect those folks later, don't worry about that.